story of the Ukrainian anarchists is filled with all types of dreamy stories, myths and legends. And we're gonna follow the story of the female Ataman, a female general so grandiose in her scale, who taught Makhno how to properly organize, an incredible author, her being the mother anarchy herself. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Maria Nikiforova. Before we start this video, I need to talk about sources. The main source being used by Anarchist Circle is Malcolm Archibald, and he states, there is no scholarly biography of Maria Nikiforova, no historiography of her life, which only needs to be updated and possibly reinterpreted. And there you have it. The main source used in the West by anarchists are not really primary sources. It's a semi-propaganda text, reimagining her as Joan of Arc, too good of a person. Now the good thing is, when I saw the script about 3 years ago, this was sort of the main source that existed, and I felt very wrong about it. It was not very good. Luckily, last 3 years there's been a lot of academic research coming out of Russia, and luckily now there's actually scholarly biographies about Maria, and they use primary sources. So it's perfect. So now I can actually make this video proper and not filled with falsehoods. I should also point out another thing though, there's also the right-wing Ukrainian and Russian side, which views her as a terrorist, a demoness, a transsexual monster. This woman exists mostly in myth. The main part of the story and what we know today happened around 1917 to 1919 in eastern Ukraine, the areas of Zaporozhye, Kherson and the Don Kazakh host. And the reason for her fame was because of how people reported about her. There were rumors, there were newspaper reports, it was memoirs, a bit of a biography was written about her adventures in the West. Now, is this true? Give or take a lot of these stories. They're a bit too magical. But maybe you need to believe in magic to be an anarchist nowadays. Who knows? Who knows?
Мы анархисты, народ веселый, для нас свобода дорога. Свои порядки, свои законы, все остальное трава.
Nikiforova is Joan of Arc, born in the Ukrainian city of modern-day Zaporozhye in 1885. Daughter of an officer who was a hero in the Russia-Turco War. She left home when she was 16 to go with the love of her life, an adventurer. That obviously didn't work out. Young little girl was tricked. She became a worker. She went to different industries. She was a bottle washer in a vodka distillery. And at this time she joined the local anarchist groups. A lot of these groups are also focused on terrorism. So they did a lot of attacks, and Maria was part of these attacks. She did kidnapping, bombing, terror, you name it. And at one point she was actually supposed to blow herself up in a big grand thing, but the bomb didn't work, so she got arrested. She was sentenced to death. But luckily, because she was under the age of 21 at the time, she was sent to Siberia. And in Siberia she was able to escape. She went on the Great Siberian Railway, reached Vladivostok, went to Japan, where she helped the Chinese anarchists. She got a ticket to the United States, in which she fled together with the Jews, where she settled herself in New York and Chicago. And there she created her different synonyms to be able to write, to publish what she had done, and created the name Marusya. And after some time she was able to make money to go to Spain, and where she gave the knowledge to Spanish anarchists. She took part in bank robberies in Barcelona. She was able to go to France for a specific treatment for her gender dysphoria. While in France, she can go to the Parisian cafes and meet artists of all kinds. And she met with Vladimir Antonio Ovsenka, which also helped her a lot in her activities in France. She also got a husband, the Polish anarchist Witold Buszowniak. She went to London in 1913 to attend a conference of Russian anarcho-communists. And there her name was first written down, Marusya, in an official manner. And she viewed that this conference didn't understand anarchism or any of the concepts of it. So when World War I happened, many groups started splintering. And she could follow Kropotkin's ideas of anarcho-communism with an anti-German position. At the beginning of World War I, she joined a French military school, graduated the rank of officer. When the war with the Russians started, she was able to flee back to Russia, and she reached it in 1917, first reaching Petrograd. While in Petrograd, she could see the provincial government and Petrograd Soviets sort of fighting each other, so it was also her time to do action. And a big outing with the provincial government happened when they arrested 60 men in 1917. These men were different sort of anarchists and anarcho-communists. Because they were so well organized and so much better than everybody else, that they had to be arrested. Which also gave Nikiforova the opportunity to join the Kronstadt rebellion. And she made speeches to the 10,000 sailors. After the failure of the Kronstadt rebellion, she returned to Ukraine. And her returning to Ukraine is actually where a lot of the real provable sources are starting to come in. So now we're actually going to split off from the myth. But all of this fantastical story about her was a way for her to create a story that was spread throughout Ukraine. So all the people actually believed that she was some special person, a unique person who's been all over the world, been with anarchists everywhere. So you need to follow her. She knows best. She's smarter in both military matters, political matters, agricultural matters. She's the leader we all wanted. Follow her or doom yourself. The real life Nikiforova is a bit different. What is written about Nikiforova you can find at the summer of 1917 at the earliest. Validated and written by Tonov of Senka, who characterized her as energetic and a stupid warrior. There's also other memoirs from other anarcho-communists that also stated her beginning activities in the summers of 1917. In the summer of 1917, she arrived to Hulepol in company with 3 anarchists, with the intent of meeting with Nestor and Makhno, with the idea of ensuring that he followed anarchist ideals. At the time when she met Makhno, he didn't have any weapons, so she decided to do a raid on the Preobrazhensky Regiment workshop in Orekhovo station. Nikiforova and Makhno led an anarchist detachment of 200 people. They surrounded the regiment headquarters, and she shot the captured lower headquarters officers. And with these weapons, they started confiscating landowners' lands around to be part of the peasant communities. When they were done with the raid, she tried to replace the head of agricultural factories with people of the peasant communities, but it didn't work out. She got arrested. When Makhno learned about this arrest, he had to create his own detachment of the Black Guard to go and save her, but at that point she already managed to escape. But this gave Makhno both the weaponry, the mindset of Nikiforova, and the willingness to use force if necessary.
Nestor Ivanović веди нас, всіх ворогів подушим. Nestor Ivanović веди нас, всіх ворогів подушим.
Nikiforova recreated her detachment, and in November of 1917 was fully formed. She joined with clashes of Soviet troops and the Haidamaks. And here's the concern, and I have a lot of concerns here. Now it's going back to very localized history with no evidence. The Haidamaks are yet to be researched properly. There has been one other source that talks about the Haidamaks. The Haidamaks, to give you a bit of an idea, is a paramilitary group in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth in the 17th century. And there's an idea that during the Ukrainian War of Independence, happened in 1917 to 1921, paramilitary groups, calling themselves Haidamaks, and a lot of the anarchists discuss their clashes with Haidamaks. I only found one source as of yet romanticizing the concept of the Haidamaks in the 1917 War of Independence. One of the Haidamaks groups called the first free combat detachment of the fight against counter-revolution. And the truth of the matter is, no evidence of that detachment actually existing except very, very recent sources of 2022. which also has certain weaknesses in their claims.
Ідем в пітьмі огнями, сягаємо ми до наших меж, і над ворожими полками засвітим огнища пожеж, і над ворожими полками засвітим огнища пожеж. Ми йдем, ми йдем, ми йдем, ми йдем.
On March 5th or 6th, 1918, Nikiforova was wounded at a rally that she organized at the Elforti plant, not far from Elizabeth City. The report that she was wounded in battle is inaccurate. In reality, it was a shot from a revolver fired from the crowd by the workers of the plant. Perhaps the assassination attempt was caused by a rumor spreading amongst the workers that she had come to seize the factory's cash register. The next morning, on her orders, the city was shelled with rapid artillery fire. A battle began in the streets. The entire city rose up against Nikiforova. Up to 18,000 workers, including Red Guards. The army called themselves the Army of the Provincial Committee of the Salvation of the Revolution, created to fight Maria Nikiforova. To help with the fighting against this detachment, she worked with the Reds, the Bolsheviks, and different other soldiers of the South Russian Dnieper Metallurgy Society. But it didn't work out. She got driven out of the city and lost. It became an entire civil war in the little city. Every night there were gunfires, explosions, bandits and robbers. And not until the Soviet authorities, which Maria asked for assistance, came with armored vehicles could they get the city to calm down, and ordered everyone to surrender their weapons, except the Bolsheviks, who was actually fighting together with the city folks against Maria Nikiforova. Sadly, only a little time later, the city was attacked by the Germans. They regrouped a little later on to fight against the Germans and the Haidamaks, who was working together with the Germans at the time. Joining her were certain Bolshevik detachments, an armored train, but yet they couldn't actually win, and they lost against the Germans. Another event, a nurse from the Red Guard detachment, Pekarskaya. She managed to create a small detachment of 30 cavalrymen, 50 infantrymen, and 10 cars, which caused Nikiforova to actually panic. So she decided to take control over a field warehouse that was already in control by the Council of Workers and soldiers of Danish deputies. Yet again, she was unable to do this, and she was defeated by a force of 1,500 people. During the German offensive, it was really hard to organize, and everything was kind of chaotic, and a lot of miscommunication occurred. There was a clash near Sofivaka, where Nikiforova's Socialist Worker detachment and a Chinese detachment had a conflict. They managed to disarm the Chinese, and the Chinese then joined up with her detachment. But even then, she again had to retreat in May of 1918, eastwards, over to the Don Kazakh region. There was a battle in Sudonai, where Maria Nikiforova was injured. It was a clash with the Germans near the village of near Kagalnitskaya. The different testimonies about this conflict, some even saying that the Germans didn't actually reach that deep in, so they didn't have to flee. But it was a slogan within the detachment that Nikiforova had at the time, which was saying, "To the north, to Russia." There are testimonies of her shooting retreating comrades. The testimony goes like this. "Then we left for Batyirsk. It was necessary to let other trains through. They took me into the carriage. It turns out it was Maria Nikiforova's detachment, and there was a conspiracy to shoot everyone, the entire Don Republic. I began to ask why. Yes, the officer is there. But I convinced them that they were our guys. Then I got into the train of anarchist Petrenko, also the same bully, going to shoot the Don Republic public as counter-revolutionaries." Another testimony from A.V. Mokrosev, who was close to Marusy's ideology and tactically, denied the image of the goddess of indiscipline and looting attributed to her. Marusya's train was, like a woman, a box full. Many who wrote about it paid special attention to the result of its war, the contents of its carriage. On the train there was a dozen of machine guns, stock rifle, cartridges, and on the platform there was a gun ranging from small Goshnes to 44mm naval, its own security. its own drivers, its own conductors, supplies of alcohol, wine, food, textiles, squads treasury, brass music, pianos, gramophones, flowers, red ribbon, wives, sisters, changed at least once per week. Perhaps the imagination of the average person was amazing. This was wonderful abundance against the backdrop of general poverty. And the minor of the conscience Bolshevik is unpredictable materialism. Directly after this testimony, there was a battle with the Haidamaks in Alexandrovsk. Maria Nikiforova withdrew her detachment from the front and went to Gortitsa to impose indemnity on the bourgeoisie, the inhabitants of the formerly rich German colony. Numerous evidence collected by the Moscow Revolutionary Tribunal of June 1918 to January 1919 exposed Maria Nikiforova's looting, reconquisting not only weapons and food, but also stocking, underwear, valuables. In executions not only of class enemies, but Soviet workers who refused to carry out her orders, and also for being kikes. She managed to be acquitted, although the statement of her sympathizing comrades clearly bore signs of loose handling of the facts. And at this time there were also people using the name Marusya. This is why I'm not using it, and only using the name Maria Nikiforova, because many people use the name Marusya to recruit people to Maria Nikiforova's detachment, because there were multiple women who were loyal to Nikiforova. For example, there was a statement of someone calling himself Nikiforova, who was a thin, dark-haired girl of 18-20 years old, in a tunic, boots, and a military cap. But the truth of the matter is, she was 33 and looked very scabby and kind of like a boy. Maria Nikiforova ended her life in Tarsen in 1918, or near Novosibirsk in 1919. But there is a statement in a newspaper in the Great Russian that claims it was in September of 1919 and it was an execution. Testimonies of her characteristics stated she had a gift of oratory, ability to drive a motorcycle and a car, a fearlessness and adventurism. She took young people as her adjutants, and if she did anything wrong, she would immediately shoot her. An anonymous essay, Marusya the Anarchist, mentioned her favorite adjutant, Motilek, who she shot while drunk for disobeying orders. But there were also other anarchists who had a positive view on her. But when it comes to her bad treatments, she says she was no different than everybody. I'll keep the third myth of her a bit shorter, because this is already a very long video. So there's quite a lot of far-right Ukrainian and Russian propaganda against Maria Nikiforova, and that is focusing on a few different aspects. One that you saw in the actual explanation, that she's a looter, she killed prisoners, she did a lot of these acts which is considered as a terrorist for many of these guys, so they've seen her as a horror, a fear, a bad person. The second one is obviously being an anarchist, not joining any specific forces, being very anti both Ukraine and Russia. The looting, the other aspect, seen as a rebel that caused more chaos than order in the area she was in. There was also a lot of explanation of her being part of different anarchist terrorist organizations throughout the world, but I can't actually prove any of these, and neither can they, so I'm not really taking that into consideration. And the third one, something I've been glossing over a lot, and I really shouldn't, but it's also a very iffy topic that they like to take into consideration. Maria Nikiforova isn't a female. She's androgynous, and that is an odd thing. So technically, throughout all this, you can think about a woman, but she doesn't have proper sexual organs. That's why, according to the myth, and again, this is myth, but the character of a myth is still this. She had the sex operation to fix certain problems she had, but her marriage also was sort of null because she couldn't have kids and they didn't have sexual relation with one another. And this is taken into consideration a lot when you will read anti-Maria Nikiforova articles about her being androgynous. But I think it's such an icky topic, I'm just gonna skip it now and actually say goodbye, because I'm 20 minutes in this and this is such a mess, and I've not even touched, I would say, 10%. There is so much more, but it's all not being able to be proven half the time. You can ask a question if this woman is even real, and it's hard to say. She's more of a myth, an urban legend, than she's a real person.